Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another YouTube episode of Freedom Uncensored. I'm really excited to talk about this topic today, and I'll tell you a little bit about why that is. But basically, I want to talk to you about how to quadruple your profit. Because a lot of the salon and clinic owners that are in my world often start off really with their back against the wall as far as their business profitability. And, some of the main reasons why people reach out to me is because there's not enough money, there's not enough cash flow going on in the business. So I really want to share with you today some ideas, some perspectives, some different ways of looking at things that can potentially help you make some decisions or engage in some actions that are going to effectively help you build a business that is, abundant in terms of the wealth and the cash flow that it can provide you. So, previous to this, I have shared with you how I got myself to really high cash profit months. Obviously, my learnings and my journey has been that hasn't always been this way. I haven't always had businesses. In fact, I've probably spent more time in business in low profitability than I have in high profitability throughout my business career, because of various experiences and situations and factors and things that go on. But what I can say to you is, with what I've learned so far, it's getting easier to turn profit over in the businesses that I run. So, and I also obviously work with a lot of salon and clinic owners that are working on this every day. They come into the Freedom Mastery program. Most of them are in cash flow deficit or are just kind of their heads sort of here where just sort of making ends meet. And then obviously they invest in a process that is going to, definitely put them into a different position. And, my belief and philosophies around business and my experience of business is that business really is a vehicle for freedom. And my belief is that freedom comes from financial advantage. Your ability to live your life free of, restrictions around money. And this, money can buy you time. It can buy you holidays. It can buy you peace of mind. It can buy you flexibility. It can buy you so many things. It's not just the fundamental exchange of, when I have enough money, I'm going to buy a Range Rover, right? Money gives you the opportunity to live a much more fulfilling life. It gives you the capacity to live a healthier life. It gives you the flexibility to choose certain pathways for your family and for your life. So to me, money really is the fundamental element in you being able to live a lifestyle that is free. Imagine if you lived your life in a way where you didn't have to consult money, didn't have to ask money if it was okay. You could just do and act and be and live exactly the way that you want to without the restraints of finances, and it's not a pipe dream. I'm definitely living the fruits of a lifestyle that is financially free and without, obviously there's still some constraint in terms of, as you start to grow through the process, what you want to achieve becomes more expensive. The lifestyle that you want to live becomes more expensive. The heights that you want to get to in terms of maybe your investments and what you want to do. So there's always more to do, but it's also about really, believing that this can actually be a reality for you. And I want to instill that sense of confidence because I'm living and breathing proof that it can be reality. And I also work with salon and clinic owners every day in achieving those realities. And everyone's realities is different, okay? And what they want to achieve is different. Their sense of freedom is different. So whatever that means for you, I want you to really believe and lean into the fact that your business can actually give you financial flexibility that gives you all of the freedoms in the world. Now, sometimes I come across people in the journeys, mostly obviously salon and clinic owners, that do not have those flexibilities. They do not have those freedoms. In fact, their life and their experience is probably the opposite. I come to people, and I did come across somebody this week that prompted me to want to do this YouTube episode, because I just looked at this person and I just felt so sad, because, obviously the reason why they booked the call is because they, from a cash flow perspective, it was really tight. They weren't making the money. They were a bit lost. They didn't know what to do. So they jumped on a call. And when it came time to actually committing, their comment to me, even though I would ask questions, here's the ballpark figure of because I'm really transparent with how much things cost to invest in, and I'm really upfront with all of that. And, I was so upfront with that, this business owner still booked the second call. And then what happened was, at the end of that call, the business owner said, I'm just not in a financial position to make this investment. But I want to explain to you what happened, because a week before that, when I'd asked her about, here's the price ranges, and, and her commentary was very much about, I'll make this work. I have to do something. I'm never going to get out of this mess if I don't do something. And then 7 days later, we're playing that script over again, where it's like, oh, I'd love to do it, but I can't because I can't afford it. So what happened? What happened to this person? Well, what happened to this person is probably what happens to 99.9% of the population when they become uncomfortable. They experience a discomfort and then they want to avoid it. The other thing is that, when it comes down to it, you need to be able to trust yourself to make the investment to get the results. And what I think had happened for this business owner is that when it come down to the crunch, she just couldn't back herself in that moment. And I said to her, I want you to understand that no one can really afford the investment when they start. They just can't. Most people don't have the money. The difference between the people that still move forward and make it work and then get themselves into a different position and the people that don't is that, it's basically just courageousness, and also an element of self-trust that, you can still move even though, yeah, the reality is you don't have the money. The reality is every coach that I've invested in, I've never been able to afford it, ever. But I've leaned in, I've made it work. Yes, it was definitely uncomfortable, but I can honestly say that I come out the other side of that with the results that I came for, because I backed myself, I trust myself, I know that I'm going to be able to get the result. Obviously, this does rely on the right investment. I have made investments before where for whatever reason, it hasn't been the right investment. And I think this is what scares people, but I think that I showed all the evidence to this person that we get the results, that here's all the numbers and here's all the testimonials and here's all the people, but they still couldn't back themselves in that moment. And nothing that I could do or say was going to change that for that person, because that's where they're up to on their journey. So let's talk about what makes the difference, what gets the cash in the bank for these business owners that really do, they come to me, they don't have the money to pay, whether it be in my marketing agency or whether it be in the coaching program. They don't have the money most of the time, but they make it work. So what does making it work look like? What happens for these business owners that when they actually lean into the process, they're able to get, double, triple, quadruple the profits into their business? And I'm going to step you through some of the stages and some of the strategy, but a lot of it is actually about what goes on in here. So really, this is about you. I often say to my clients that your bank account is a direct reflection of how courageous you are. It really is. The money in your bank right now is directly correlated with how much self-trust you've got, how much you back yourself, and how freaking courageous you are. It's just the reality, right? Because let's think about the mindset and the energy behind this. So if you are stuck in a lack or a scarce mentality, you'll say things to yourself like, oh, when I get the money, or I'll do this when, I'll get this support when, I'll invest when. The moment never, ever comes. You're waiting for this ideal situation to unfold. You're actually waiting for yourself to be more comfortable, to move. That's what we call scarcity. You know, that you don't want to step forward because you don't believe you have what it takes, you have enough finances, you have enough team, you have enough, and the reality is because you're waiting for that to change. The very reason why you're in that situation in the first place is because you probably need to invest in some way. You probably need to get some support. You probably need to invest in, a strategy or some marketing or some coaching or whatever it is going to be. You need to do something different, right? You need to do something different in that moment. But when you're scared, when you're in lack, when you're scarce, you fool yourself into thinking, oh no, it'll all be good. And when this unicorn scenario jumps out in front of me, that's when I'll take the leap. And it's the very mindset that's keeping you stuck. As long as you continue to avoid discomfort and not take calculated risks, you're going to stay where you are. And that's just the reality of how much mindset plays a role in your business being able to generate more cash flow. You have to do something different to what you're doing now. It probably has to be quite dramatically different to what you're doing now. Because if you had been able to work it out, you would have done it by now. Do you think you would have let yourself get into a cash flow deficit or under break even, or if you knew what to do? No. Sometimes it's not even about the knowing. Some people know what to do. They just don't fucking do it. That's a problem too that I'm going to talk about. If you were going to fix it, you would have fucking fixed it. Right? So something has to be dramatically different about either your psychology, your courageousness, your resourcing, who you're surrounding yourself with, where you're getting help from. Something needs to be dramatically different in your mindset around approaching that for you to get yourself into a better profitability position. I'm going to stay on you because there's a number of other areas when it comes to you and the reason why you're not as profitable as you should be. Okay. Emotions play a big part of it. Emotions in the sense of, if you are experiencing business right now in a very overwhelming way, it's probably likely that you're avoiding things. Often when we become overloaded and overwhelmed and everything gets very difficult, and an unhealthy way of coping with that is to just stick our heads in the sand, just to run away, block off, avoid, it's too hard. Right? So I'm more avoiding that discomfort. Even when I put the proposition in front of that business owner, here's the answer. Oh, I don't have the money. That's someone avoiding the discomfort that it's going to take for them to actually go through the process, fix things that they probably are scared to fix, address things that they're probably scared to face. Right? So it's easier to avoid, even though when you look at what avoidance breeds, this business owner is definitely not in a comfortable financial position right now. In fact, it's very painful. In my view, it's not painful enough. Because if it was painful enough, they would have taken the action. Right? So the other side of that is that rather than avoid, you become really reactive. You become aggressive, you become volatile, you become emotional, you start lashing out at people. Right? That obviously is not going to put more money in the bank, that response. Your team are probably going to get really destabilized from that, the culture and the business. And, we all know that money, the energy behind money is it likes structure and it likes calm and it likes order. If you're flapping around like an absolute lunatic, highly reactive, first and foremost, if you think about the functioning attached to that, nobody thinks straight when they're in that frame of mind. Nobody finds the solutions when they're in that frame of mind. Nobody, comes up with creative responses or strategies when you're in a reactive predicament or when you're experiencing emotional reactivity. So of course money's not going to flow when you're in that state of mind. The other thing about emotions when they're out of control, whether it be sad, overwhelmed, depressed, angry, resentful, all of those things, is that the intensity of those emotions creates inconsistency in your action taking. You feel sad, so you don't do XYZ. You feel frustrated, so you take a course that destabilizes everybody. You know, for example, you feel frustrated that your team aren't performing, so you start lashing out at people and you think that's going to make them perform. In fact, it often has the opposite effect. So emotional stability, calmness, really does put you in a position where you're going to be able to see the clarity, you're going to be able to get creative, you're not going to hurt people around you, and you're going to have a much more tolerance and capacity to do what you need to do, which obviously will create paydays, money, wealth, finance, profit, abundance, right? Money is attracted to that for a lot of reasons that I just explained. The other element of all of this profit and cash flow and wealth starting with you is about your functioning and about how you respond to different things. So we've got your mindset and how scarce and in lack you are. We've got, and obviously linked to that is self-trust and being able to move. We've got emotional regulation and how avoidant you are or how reactive you are, and then the impact that that has on your action taking and the consequences that can have. And then overall, you're functioning. So you're functioning in terms of how you show up, how consistent you are, how committed you are, how courageous you are, what sort of relationship you have with failure, how you lead yourself, how you lead other people. That's all really, really important in terms of your internal world and that leading to profitability in your business. For example, if you're feeling overwhelmed and then as a result your commitment drops off and then you stop taking action, well, that's not going to create money and profit. Another really good example is, speed to execution. If you need to overthink things for a week, you're not going to get results in a speedy time frame. And often people that take a long time to execute things run out of money. And it's so sad. I've seen people, just plod along. They don't really execute quickly and they think about things and they overthink about things and they overcomplicate the shit out of things. And, really, if they had to just taken action and made peace with the fact that nothing is ever perfect and no situation is ever ideal, and they just took action anyway, you're going to get there a lot quicker than if you fuck around, basically. That's just the reality of it. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people mess about for a lot of different reasons. And then they get to the end of the line and they've run out of money. And then they don't have a choice. And it's like, well, if you just did this 3 months ago, if you just did this 6 months ago and you didn't mess about and get in your own way, now you're in a position where your back's against the wall and there's not a lot of choice there. It's because when you move, you've got to move quick. Like I said, you're better off moving and making a mistake than not moving at all. So that's kind of the insights around profit producing activity when it comes to you. Mindset, emotional regulation, and functioning. All of those key factors are integral to you being able to hit higher levels of profitability in your business. Let's get into more the tactical, because obviously you as a human being and who you are plays a big role in terms of how much money your business is making. But tactics and strategy also play a role. Okay, you can't have one without the other. Sometimes people think that, and I learned this the hard way, because I definitely thought that if I just put this strategy in place or that strategy in place, that it should pay. And what I learned was, no, you couldn't actually neglect who I was and the way that I was doing things, who I was being when I was doing these things actually played as much of an important role as how I was doing things. Who I was being in executing those strategies, because let's say, for example, got the best strategy in the world, but then if I'm reactive, and I'm, and I'm not in a good headspace, maybe I'm going to bark that out to people, and people are going to be scared and overwhelmed and not perform at their best. So you and the strategy need to be functioning well and the right, obviously aligned, and the right thing to be doing in that moment for you to get good profit results. So tactics. There's 3 different areas that I specifically look at when I'm trying to help business owners create more profitability in their business. Because when I think about these 3 areas, tweaks in any one area can obviously create a lot more profit and a lot more cash flow in your business. Now, a lot of people say, you got to know your numbers. I take it one step forward. It's not just about knowing numbers, it's about knowing what to do with numbers. That's the key. Right. So, you can look at numbers. I've had business owners look at numbers and go, yep, I understand what's happening. Fucked if I know what to do about it. I can see that my hourly rate is only $79 an hour. I know it's bad because there's no money in the bank, but I'm really lost as to what I'm supposed to be doing. What actions am I supposed to be taking? What decisions am I meant to be making? What things do I need to change? How do I need to act differently to actually fix this number that I can see on the page? That is mostly where some of the difficulty lies for the business owners that I work with. And it's two-pronged. If you don't know the numbers and you don't know what to do about it, you're in a super vulnerable position when you've got both of those factors at play. That's really scary for people. So 3 areas that I look at when I'm helping people with profit: white space, performance, and pricing. So let's look at white space. I had someone say to me the other day, what is white space? And I'm like, I just get caught up in all of these ways of explaining things that sometimes I assume people know what I'm talking about. Half the time they don't. So white space is pretty much just gaps in your appointment books, opportunities to make money, time that's sitting there that's not being optimized is basically what I refer to when I speak about white space. And there's lots of reasons why you'll have white space sitting in your appointment books. Not booking your clients consistently. They stretch out appointments and they should be in at 4 weeks and they're coming in at 6 weeks. And, just that dynamic of not having clients coming in when they're supposed to is costing you money, right? They're probably missing a couple of visits a year just because you don't have them into an attendance rhythm. That's really important. Cancellations create white space. I look at that as low commitment in clients. My frame on the reason why someone's cancelling is because they're not committed. And there's lots of different ways that you need to increase commitment levels in clients, whether it be from a financial perspective and tailoring budgets and putting subscription style payment structures in place so that they don't have to find lump sums of cash when it's their appointment. And there's lots of different things that you can look at when it comes to cancellations and increasing commitment in clients. But effectively, lots of cancellations create white space. Inconsistency in attendance creates white space. Over-resourcing creates white space. Over-resourcing in the sense that you hire all these team members and then you don't have the clients for them, or they're not keeping the clients, right? And then you over-resource. You've got someone sitting there, they're paid for 8 hours, but they're only working for 3 of those. That's a lot of money being wasted. Inconsistency in marketing creates white space. If you don't have effective ways to engage your database, your existing clientele in terms of increasing their investment levels, finding new clients, and there's no consistency around that, you're going to end up with white space, and white space strangles profit, right? Reason being is because you're not making money with the time that you've got available to you. And also you're spending money, let's say in the instance of the fact that you're overstaffed, you've got too much resource, you're spending money on resource that's not giving you a return on investment. Some of the same challenges can happen is if you're inconsistent in marketing, you're not bringing in the people or re-engaging the people, which means that you're left vulnerable, particularly when you've got the team sitting there ready to work. So when you look at white space from all of those different elements, you can see that you can easily strangle out your profit if you don't have strategies in place to fix all of those elements. And for a lot of people, and I'm obviously going through white space performance and pricing, they've got all of the above. So you can imagine, the stress of just looking at these numbers, not knowing what to do, but just looking at the bank account and just going, well, something's got to change, but where do I start? So the second part of you being able to create cash flow surplus, particularly in my world, because my world business owners come to me because they don't want to work on the tools. I mean, they might want to work on the tools as a matter of choice, but their choice might be 1 day a week. They don't want to be booked back to back with clients 5-6 days a week, which means that they need to obviously have high performance in their teams to make money. When you actually leverage a business in a way where all the money's not just resting on your shoulders, all of the revenue doesn't rely on you. And that's the way I like to do business. I don't want to be fully responsible for all of the money that's coming in my business. I want to know that I can fix cash flow problems if I need to, but I don't want to be responsible for all the money that's coming in because I want to have a life. Which means that I need to invest in the performance of my team members. And when performance is not where it needs to be, it strangles profit. If you're investing in a team member, and this is where the 4 to 5 times wage comes from. We don't pluck that out of thin air. That's based on business metrics, right? The reality is once you've paid wages, you need to make 4 to 5 times that amount to cover your expenses. That's not a nice to have. That is a fucking necessity, right? Not understanding that formula puts a lot of business owners who thought that if they just went and got more team members, and then they go and get all of the team members, and then the team members aren't performing, all you're doing is replicating problems in your business that create more financial stress. Right? So being able to cultivate performance in your team members where you pay them $30 an hour and they're making $150 an hour, and that makes sure that we're getting the 4 to 5 times wage, and that we can not only pay them, pay the expenses attached to providing the service, pay the overheads, and then at least have 30% left over to put in our pockets or reinvest. That's the formula. Right? But if you don't know how to cultivate performance to that level, this is where the business really starts to suffer profit stress. Right? If your team member's only producing double their wage, that's not enough. You pay them and then you've got this tiny little bit of money left over and you've still got to pay all the bills. Right? So performance, retailing, not as an extra, as a necessity. Getting clients booked into service plans, not as an extra. It's because that's what needs to happen to get people results. Enhancing services, offering upgrades, not because it's an extra, because people need things above and beyond what they've booked in for. Right? This is where performance comes in. Performance comes in understanding that the baseline is meeting needs and providing value to clients, not just providing a service. Right? And how skillful you are in being able to help team members rise to that standard is an imperative factor as to whether your business is going to make money as a result of you investing in team. The third part of the tactics that I often spend a lot of time with clients on is around pricing. So none of that other stuff matters that I've mentioned. So white space, performance, your functioning, none of that matters if you've got a service menu that is not priced for profit. Right? And then what I mean by that is that you have an understanding of every single service in your business and how much money it's making you, and that you've got a threshold there. So my baseline is that your services, once let's say you sell a service for $100, your cost of your service, that is your payroll and the cost of goods that it takes to actually just provide the service, that's not rents and things, just literally your product or, whatever it is tangibly that goes into providing that service, that has to be under 30% of the total service price. So if you are pricing a service at $100, you need to make sure it costs less than $30 to provide that service. Most people don't run off that formula. They don't even have a formula in place at all. The amount of business owners that I've spoken to when I ask them about how they've priced their services have said to me, well, I just look down the road and Sally's 120 and I look the other way and Mary's 100, so I charge 110. I just chuck myself in the middle. And I just think, what a haphazard way of pricing your service menu. You've got to price it relative to your expenses. What it cost you to provide the service, not what Mary's charging down the road. So none of anything what I said matters if you don't have a service menu that is geared for profit. You need to be able to take, once you've paid all your bills, you need to have 30% left over for profit. Now, your pricing menu plays one of the most important roles in whether you're going to end up with, at the end of the month, once you've paid all of your bills, whether you've got that 30% left over in profit. I don't care what you do with your profit in terms of if you want to get engaged in some tax minimizing liability, like do what you want with it. But the basic fundamentals of business is that you've got to make sure that you're aiming for that profit level and then do with it what you like to get rid of the money or, minimize how much tax you're going to pay on that. I'm not saying that, tax minimization is a good strategy, but understanding how much profit you've got in each one of your service needs to be the benchmark before you start getting fancy with all of that stuff. For a lot of people, if you need to start getting fancy with money at the end of the day, then you're doing the right thing. Right? If your accountant's saying you need to change structures or you need to do X, Y, and Z, it's a good problem. It's the new level problem to have. All right, so it starts with you, and there's lots of things internally, emotionally, mindset-wise, functioning-wise that need to happen to create cash flow surplus in your business. Tactically, we're looking at white space, performance, and pricing as three main areas that you need to manipulate to make sure that money starts to hit the bank account. The third area that I want to look at is leadership, right? So not just around performance, but leadership in general. How healthy your work environment is, how willing you are to protect the culture. How open are you to having uncomfortable conversations with your team members? How quick are you prepared to eliminate toxicity in your business? Who are you prepared to let into your business when you recruit? Are you a bit desperate and let everybody in, or do you really guard the gate on that? Do you have adequate structures in your business? So operations, procedures, things that support your team to feel secure, to feel clear, to feel like they know what they're supposed to be doing and to ultimately help set them up for success? Do you have healthy functioning in your team environment? Do you have human beings that communicate in healthy and safe ways? Is there a degree of, obviously, safety in your environment? The way that you lead your environment is incredibly important as to whether you're going to be able to create cash flow positivity in your business, right? Because I've seen this. I've seen businesses have really toxic environments. Now, they might have some I won't even call them A players because they're not. They might have some team members that are performing really well, that are bringing in the money, but they're vampiring and being toxic to the energy in the workplace. They might be, snarling at people or being aggressive or not following processes or doing whatever they like. What I would say to you is that the cash flow or the profit that they're producing is very time limited, because they're not going to survive the environment when they behave in those ways. And effectively what might happen is that they become so toxic that they actually start to zap out the cash producing performance and capacity of your other team members. So you don't end up in a profitable position at all. You have one toxic person that's creating cash flow, but it's zapping out 6 or 7 other people, which means that it still puts your business behind. Right? So leadership and culture in your business is also a precursor to how much money it's going to be able to make. So often I have conversations where clients come to me and say things like, I need to make more money and can you just find me some new clients? It's like you actually think that fancy marketing is going to save your business, or getting new clients is going to save your business. What's probably going to save your business is one or all of those things that I just mentioned to you in this episode. It's not really sexy stuff. Oh, working on your retention, boring. Working on your team performance, oh, it's uncomfortable. Up leveling yourself as a human being, oh, that's scary. Yeah, but it's what needs to happen for you to create more wealth, for you to generate more cash flow, for you to be worthy of higher levels of payment. This is the work that needs to be done, guys. You need to be courageous. You need to make moves that challenge your status quo. This is not about doing more of the same and hoping that some fucking unicorn thing's going to drop out the sky and save you. It's not. You have to be completely and utterly prepared to overhaul who you are as a human being and what moves you're prepared to make as that human being to unlock levels of success and profitability that potentially you never even thought were possible. Right? So I'm here to tell you that sometimes the work is difficult, it's scary, it's unsexy, but it's what needs to happen. Working on all of those areas, the mindset, the leadership, the performance, the white space, all of that stuff, like I said, is sometimes not the most attractive things, the fun things. It's not fun sometimes to work on some of those things. Right? Do you think it's people have fun when they come to the realization that they're actually the bottleneck? That the reason why they're not moving is because they don't fucking trust themselves? That when they're faced with an uncomfortable situation, it's actually easier for them to just bury their head in the sand? Do you think that's easy to digest? No. But if you want to make more money and you want to be more profitable, this is the work that needs to happen. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments section. Throw some shade at me if you want. I really don't mind. This is about, I'm not attached. I'm here to serve. I'm here to get you the results. I'm here to push you. I'm here to challenge your status quo when you're not prepared to do it. You might be sitting here watching this YouTube going, man, I really need to move. You probably do, right? So I'd love to hear from you in the comments section.